Hi, this is our introduction to using a Carvey and xcarve. Specifically, we're going to be talking about how to clamp down projects in these things. So here's the wasteboard of the Carvey. You can see there's all sorts of lines inside of it, and sometimes, if you end up drilling a little too deep, you drill into the wasteboard, which is okay. I have to replace these about once a year, and you can see all the past projects in here. What you don't want to do is be like this person who was carving so deep that they wound up hitting metal, actually. Broke the bit. So the first thing you need to make sure you know is how thick your material is. If we're going to carve into this, we need to know how thick it is. Now this is a caliper. Now when it's closed, it doesn't say 0. That means I need to 0 it, because right now it's closed. This piece is 5.64 millimeters. If we're working in inches, 0.22 inches thick. Okay, that's our Z dimension. What happens a lot is that people will be carving something and they'll end up carving off the edge. We need to make sure we know how wide this piece is. This piece is just about 6 inches wide, just about 6 inches tall. And all that goes into easel before. Now when you're going to clamp this piece down, this is called a smart clamp. And what you do with the smart clamp is it goes on top of the material. Okay? So this piece of material slides all the way into the corner. Let me show it to you. Okay, the material goes all the way in the corner, and this clamp is going to go on top of it. Okay, so we're clamping down. We're not going to get these so insanely tight that it's crushing it, but it's just nice and snug. Okay, now this side is really well secured, but we need to secure this side as well. There's a little bit of movement there. That's where these parts come in. Now this is a clamp. This is the riser that holds it up. Okay, they go together at whatever height you need. Okay, now this is a pretty short piece, so it's going to be pretty low. And the screw is going to go on top. Finish that up. And again, it doesn't need to be insanely tight. And you need to check your design to make sure you're not going to be carving here. You can see that this one's been hit a couple times because people put their clamp where they are actually carving. Okay, you can move it off. Okay, now if this were a thick board, this would be enough, but since it's a thin one, we should really get a second clamp somewhere. Over here, for example. So now that's tight. That's tight. These are tight. This piece cannot move. It'll be secure. It'll do whatever it needs to do. And the bit, let me show you what I mean. This router bit is going to be drilling into the material. Now what I want you to notice is that this bit tapers down. This is a 1/16 bit. This is a common bit that we use. Okay, now look at that next to the 1/8 inch bit, just twice as large. Okay, the 1/8 inch bit doesn't taper down at all, doesn't get any smaller from top to bottom, whereas the 1/16 inch bit does. Okay, these are the two most common bits. You should be able to recognize them. Now back to clamping. This piece is clamped in and we could carve it, but what if you want to carve something that's thicker? So let me take this piece off. Here's the piece we had in here before. What if we want to do something thicker? Now here's a 1/4 inch piece. This is a 1/2 inch. This is 3/4 of an inch. If we want to clamp this big thick piece down, it's not going to be able to happen. Get in the corner. Now these screws aren't long enough. Okay, that's why we have multiple sizes of screw. Okay, in this case, We could try the blue, but we'll see. They're just not quite long enough to reach. It's the red screws that we will need in this case, because the red screws are long enough. We could clamp this beast down. Okay. And in this case, we're going to need a red screw to be able to get this outside clamp on with the riser again. Okay. Before I do any carving, I need to make sure my clamps aren't in a place where they're going to be hit by the bit. So I need to look at my design and make sure I'm not carving right here in this corner. Also, you should know, right here, you can't carve underneath this L bracket. They have little red bits in easel to help you see where you shouldn't carve. If you don't have the red pieces, head up to machine and make sure you have a Carvey listed. Okay? You cannot have anything in the red spots or it will not let you carve. Now, one more piece that we should talk about is when you're clamping back here, you need to make sure that you don't have pieces that are sliding way off the back. The machine won't be able to work if there's a clamp sitting back here, because this whole board has to slide to the very back of the machine before it can get started. So you need to make sure that you're off. And what often has to happen is you just need to angle it more to the side so it's not hanging off quite so far. Now, once you get started, you need to watch the machine. Well, here's what happens when you start a machine. You click carve, and it's going to walk you through everything that you need. Okay? We should measure the board, make sure we know how thick it is, confirm that it's MDF or plastic or whatever we have in there. Okay? It says exactly what we did. Put the material in the corner, put the clamp on top. It'll show you what color screws to use. In this case, it was green. Clamp the edges. Okay, make sure you know what kind of bit you have. 1/8 inch upcut, 16th inch upcut are the two most common. Click confirm bit, and then you're going to tell it to carve. Now, obviously, this is already done. We're just going to let the machine start for a second. What happens is that the machine does a homing sequence. And that little silver button, it's covered in sawdust, but the bit is going down to touch that little silver button. What you need to do is watch while this is happening that the bit doesn't start to crush that button. If a wire came loose or something bad happened, it'll start to crush, and you need to have your finger right over here ready to hit the pause in case it starts to crush the button. What it should do is just tap it slightly. And it starts up. Now this has already been carved, so I'm going to hit the pause button. The pause button pauses your work, so it's paused. And you can even open it, adjust something quick, close it again, and keep it going. In this case, we're going to clean up this dust, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay. Now the dust collector is set over here. Here is the on switch. Turn it on. Okay. Now the dust collector has all these different things coming off of it. Most of them should be closed, unless somebody else is using it. Okay. But you can open the gate. Okay. This is blocking the air right now. Now it's letting the air go through, and you can vacuum out the piece. I'm going to pause and finish here. Right, now I've cleaned up as much dust as I can. I've loosened the piece up. And what sometimes helps is to have the piece out hold it up and go through all the edges again so we can pull the dust out from in between the boards. Also try to collect dust from the sides, spindle, top. You try to vacuum the glass. When you're done, make sure you shut the gate again and turn off the dust collector. Now, your piece. Okay. I don't want to leave a mess wherever I was, so I take my extra clamps. You may leave these 2 screws in, but all of the extra clamps get put back in their proper places. So when you walk away from a machine, you're not leaving a mess, you're leaving it empty with the clamps back in the proper spots. And here's what we should have at the end. We should have the green in one place, blue, red, orange, yellow. You should have the clamps in their proper spots, the risers in their place. The green is missing too because they're still here, which is okay. That's how you leave a machine. Now the last thing, if you're taking somebody else's project out, what you should do is place it in between the machines. Okay? That's where we are going to store a project that you take out and somebody else is going to come for later. Okay? So that's an introduction to clamping and using a Carvey.